Welcome everyone to another observability clinic, actionable dashboarding, best practices on getting the right data to the right people to make better decisions with Dynatrace Dashboards. And the dashboard guru is Thomas Ziegelbecker. Servus, Thomas. Welcome back.
Guru, such a strong word. Hey, glad to be back.
No,
yeah.
no, it's true, right? I mean, we've been doing a couple of these webinars in the past, focusing on dashboarding. You are driving the product direction here on how we present the data to our users, and that's why it's really a pleasure having you back. You are the guru here, and yeah, I want to hear from you. What's the latest on dashboarding, and what have you prepared for us today?
Sure. Let's actually jump in, given my, this time it works. See, Andy, I'm learning.
Yeah.
And let's look at what we're going to learn, or what we will learn today. There's 3 things I want to leave you with, ideally at the end of this session. The first one is what's happening with dashboarding for the ones who have seen before and who are wondering. The second part is when to use what. I will give you details there in a sec. And then finally, what's new in dashboarding in general. So again, at Perform, we presented the new Dynatrace experience. And in the last session, together with Andy and Philip, we actually already looked at explorative analytics as a capability that, in essence, is the combination of dashboards and notebooks in this new experience. And when you first enter this new experience, you will see exactly this. And I already highlighted that part. I mean, you see there's notebooks, you see there's dashboards, and then you also see there's dashboards classic and the data explorer, which you know from the already existing current product. And then you might wonder, okay, but what does that now mean? And what we've already received as feedback is, what about my old stuff? What about exactly Data Explorer, etc.? And the simple answer to this, and I already spoiled it with going there, is it's all still there. So you don't have to worry. You still have your lists whenever you click Dashboard Classic, which I showed before. You will still get to the list. From there, you still go to all your existing dashboards and also to the Data Explorer, either by configuring tasks from there or by directly going to Data Explorer app, as we call. Okay. So, but then the next question might be, okay, now I see the old stuff is still there. All my stuff is still there, but how do they now compare? And which should I actually use? That's another question we got. Let me try to answer this. Let's first look at how they relate as of today. The current dashboarding or Dashboards Classic is in essence the same as the dashboarding app. And whenever you are more in a exploratory intent or coming from an exploratory intent, trying to go deeper with data in terms of metrics, then this would be in essence the equivalent of notebooks in the future or also in the new experience right now. That does, however, not mean that you cannot do the same in essence in dashboarding, because in our last session, we already showed we're using most of the concepts, if not almost all, across both of these apps. So you can actually do the same query in both and look at the same data in both. But what's then the main difference? I already also showed this the last time a bit. There's 5 points. I will just list them all. And I will also list them later when we go into the new again to do a wrap up of this. In essence, 5 points. The first one is obvious. In the new Dynatrace experience, we can leverage Grail, which means you have one place where you fetch all your data from. The second is, sorry, I mixed them up. The first is obviously the experience part, no worries. So the flows are easier. The second is then the one place to fetch all your data and also to combine it, which was not able, weren't able before in the current product. Then the third is you don't just have Grail, which is all the stuff that we capture, that you capture with Dynatrace, but you can also then right next to it show your external data. I showed this already in the last session. For instance, getting in product data right next to whatever performance data of your pods, clusters, etc. If you think about Kubernetes. Then the fourth part or point is more flexible and versatile filtering. I will show that also towards the end of the session. And then also very important with this whole new experience concept is that you can actually switch between apps, and you don't just switch between these apps, but you take all your context with you, so that it's a seamless experience. Okay, now you know what the new stuff is about, but let's go one level deeper and look at these two apps in comparison. So again, coming back to these 5 points, whenever you want to leverage Grail, whenever you want to combine data, then the obvious choice would be the Dashboards app and not classic dashboards. However, and I want to be frank there and transparent, whenever you're working with metrics, be it from browsing them to then visualizing them with, for instance, thresholds and stuff, then I would still advise you and to actually use the Dashboards Classic app, because there's still more settings that you can choose for such contexts, such as thresholds, and also the metrics browsing aspect is, I would say, as of today, better. But obviously that will change over time. Also, if you, for instance, are super interested in having light mode, because lots of people actually asked us for a white background for the dashboards, then again, use the Dashboards app. It's available there with the new experience. Yeah. Or if you want to complement the thing, and I already spoiled again, because and you will see that also in the next part where we look then into the second question, which is, or the third, what's new. You will see that there is now baselines, for instance, in the Dashboards Classics app, which you can put on top of metrics. But if you want to look into the future, that's something that, for instance, would be only available in the new experience with notebooks, for instance. So you can actually complement these two worlds. Yeah.
So
did I miss anything?
No, I think it's a great overview, and just like to recap from my side, right? Kind of putting myself into the shoes of a user. I think the new Dynatrace experience, as we call it, right, for our SaaS customers, really gives you one great opportunity with Dashboard and Notebooks. It allows you to, in a very exploratory fashion, explore your data and really understand what is there, what can you do with the data. I think you and Philip showed this very nicely in the previous clinic, and by the way, we're also linking to it in the description. So if your data is in Grail, and if you want to, as you said, combine the data, if you want to explore the data, I think that's a great way to start with notebooks and dashboards. What I also liked what you said is that they go hand in hand, right? If you have existing dashboards, they don't go away. You still have them, and if you've built them, there's no need to kind of throw them away, because I'm sure they're filling a good use case. And it's also great to see that there's still new things that they also go into the classics, until we basically push all of these new capabilities like the thresholds and the baselining also to the new dashboard app.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, I know we give people a choice right now, and it's a choice that we give them. I think because we have the two modes, but I think you give some really nice advice here on when to use what. Again, what I see, and if Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, if I have existing dashboards, there's no need to kind of get rid of them. Just leverage them, even expand them with thresholds and based on some of the new capabilities you showed me. If you're building something new, especially on data that you have in Grail, where it's not just metrics, but also logs, business events. This is stuff where you want to go into the new dashboards, into the notebooks, because we give you so many more opportunities combining this data and really getting answers to questions that is kind of buried in your data that you have.
Yeah. Well, really good wrap up, and no, nothing to object.
Cool.
All completely right. Okay, then the tougher questions, and I don't want to skip them because I think they're important, and I'm a big fan of transparency, as I said, and I have to live up to that. One thing though that comes with it is we all know, using the Dashboards Classics app and Data Explorer, that in this current world we are actually leveraging the metrics query language, while Grail comes with a new query language which is called Dynatrace Query Language, or short DQL. And that's not the same thing, right? So that already kind of hints, and that's a hard truth that we have to face, and that we try to make more pleasant, obviously, for all the ones who have that question, is that a one-to-one upgrade is definitely not possible. It's like upgrading from one product to the other, in essence. That, however, but we get it, that's an important message I want to send here. Because of course, talking to you and listening to you, we know, of course, that you have 1,000+ dashboards, even like more than just 1,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 dashboards. And you potentially want to keep hundreds of them also then the new experience, something we cannot debate away. And so I guess then the most logical next question is, so is there a path? Regardless of this, we cannot do a one-to-one thing. And without having everything sketched completely out, but that's something that would be my plan if you asked me. Of course, always object of to change potentially, but my plan would be that we again, as we already did with custom charts or Data Explorer, we again provide means to take at least a big chunk on a visualization by visualization basis, from classics or Data Explorer tiles to the new dashboard app, and then over time also do the same on a DB, means dashboard by dashboard basis, and ideally even have a all button where you can import all your existing dashboards to the new experience, to the new dashboards app. And in terms of timeframes, again, don't take it for granted. That's a plan, so it can change, obviously. But the very first version, let's call it an MVP, that tries to take as much as it can on a query level. We will try to ship with CQ2 already. Then also in parallel, this time we want to do it a bit differently. So we don't want to wait up until we have everything in place, which means we are able to let's say, convert 80% of the query and let's say 100% of the settings. We don't want to wait until this point. So also on a dashboard by dashboard basis, we want to have this button import already with CQ3, knowing that not everything is working potentially, but letting you try out things as early as possible. If you want to move over and already leverage some of the new stuff. And the AllDB is something that we then only provide once we actually are confident having all the settings at least in place, and that at least will take 1 or 2 or maybe 3 quarters, I would say, from today's time. That's my best guess. So CQ4, CQ1. Coming back to with an concrete example of thresholds, that's something we're working on right now, and there might be a few others in order to be equally capable.
So that means, Thomas, again, if I recap this, if I have existing dashboards in the Dynatrace Classic, as we call it, and I want to move them over to the new Dynatrace Dashboard experience, I can, on the one side, keep working with my existing dashboards, leverage also the new capabilities that I think you will demo in a little bit later, like the baselines and the thresholds. And then you give me a nice kind of roadmap here, how I can expand on my current usage of Dynatrace Classic, if that makes sense, and then get it converted over. So that's one option. And the other option is obviously, right, if you, again, have new use cases, if you want to build new dashboards, then I think from the start, you should look into, does it make sense to start right away with the Dynatrace new dashboard experience to actually learn what's possible? And I think this will then also, at a later point, make it easier for you because you actually understand what's available and how powerful the new dashboards are. So learning both sides a little bit. But yeah, I think that's great. It's a nice plan. And it's very, I like it a lot that you are also open on timelines, and that we're doing our best, and I'm pretty sure we will have more of these clinics to also encourage people to give us their feedback. And you obviously have an open line to our community. So folks, if you are interested in in giving feedback, you have Thomas's name, and I'm pretty sure there's ways we can find to give him direct feedback as well as you start your journey.
Yes, please.
Cool.
That's just a very high level. Don't get too focused on the text. It was more for myself. But now would then come the part where we look at, exactly as Andy said, what has changed in your product. So in Dashboards Classics and in Data Explorer, how can you extend your current usage before then finally going to the new experience and seeing a bit the difference again. Okay. Should we do this live? What do you think?
I would say so.
Should we bold?
That's too
Even though I know
big.
there's 20 bugs right now on our systems, on the development systems.
Nah, it's all will be good. People like the real stuff.
Okay. Then let's skip the slides. I will just use them so I don't lose focus along the way, but let me actually go to the product. There we go. So replicating what I actually in the intros showed already. So once you're on the new experience, once you've moved there, once you enabled it, you will see this. And again, you have the options here between the different apps. So here on the right side, you see the current product. On the left side, you see in essence the new apps extending this by again leveraging Grail. And this will be the good old world where you have your metrics, where you have the data explorer, etc. Jumping in, let me actually go back in the meantime on my, to not lose focus on my slide, to know what we should run through. What we have done in the, let's say, last quarter / last 2 quarters was mainly focusing on completing flows and making the exploration part better and easier, providing you with more context, and also some often and long-awaited smaller features, again, that complete certain visualizations and flows. Starting with the context part, one thing that I believe is really cool, because once you are on a dashboard or once you are in a data explorer, and now it gets tricky because I need to find a metric that, yeah, that's a good one actually, that has something like that. In that case, it's a drop, it's not a spike. Then let's actually remove this so we are not distracted by colors here. Once you have anything like that, you sometimes might ask yourself, okay, but is this normal, or what does that mean? And something we've now added is a feature called baseline, which in essence is leveraging all the power of Davis in order to then simply calculating a model based on the past. So you, for instance, here we've selected 2 hours. It goes further into the past, obviously. Otherwise, it would not be able to calculate what's considered normal and what's not. It then generates a confidence band. You could call it like that. So a min and a max, and then it will tell you, hey, is this normal? So even though we have a drop here, according to the confidence band, at least until here, it's considered normal, because in the past it was within this model, in this expected range, so to speak. But this, for instance, you could then already consider as abnormal behavior and then go deeper by, for instance, drilling into the, once you have split it, here I don't have split it, I've just split it by reduce or not, or actually just filtered, and then go down to any such related entity. For instance, if you're on a Kubernetes pod, like the metric is related to this, then you would go down to the pod, having the unified analysis with all the related metrics, and then go deeper. But at least like in the very first step, which makes it super easy now to grasp, hey, is this normal or not, according to the past movement of the metric. That's, I think, a very, very good addition for always diving deeper immediately.
Yeah, and I think this is it also, as you said, a lot of people ask me, hey, Andy, what is a good threshold for my SLIs and my SLOs? When I say, look at historical data, and then people ask you, well, can Dynatrace just do this for me? And this is exactly what you have. And I also like that you get the numbers here. So 18.1 is the max and the min. So that's kind of like a confidence band. So I think that's a great way. So not only for visualizing it on the dashboard, but also like taking this data then and using it for, things like SLIs and SLOs.
And maybe worthwhile noting, because at least I, before doing all this and implementing that stuff and thinking about Davis, to differentiate it a bit or to explain how it's related, because I mentioned, hey, this is built on the algorithm of Davis in essence, but why is this potentially not a problem or a problem event? Because Davis actually, yes, it uses this confidence band over time, but you have to imagine there is more on top of it. So you also configure, usually with Davis, how many times is it allowed to breach out of that band, right? And only if it's, for instance, longer than X minutes or more often than 20 times, only then there's a problem raised, because maybe you're not interested in a single breach in like 5 minutes times, because it just recovers, right?
Yeah.
And imagine all the time getting a problem for that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So that part is missing. So it's not the same. Yes, it's using the same underlying basis, which is this calculated model, but only if you then decide knowingly, deliberately, how many times you should go out, etc., then you get problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. And that's all, everything. Folks, if you're interested in more on this, this is all the alerting. There's different videos we already have on custom alerting, on the how you can configure the anomaly detection. But it's just great to see that we have this now available, parts of it in the charts. Baseline, awesome.
Yes, and you can. It's then also the same that you see in the preview, that David already presented, right? When you are creating alerts, it's in essence the same. Once you're on the same metric and the same split, and it should be exactly the same for 7 days, etc. A small little thing that I will use now that we included is if you click here, it resets, which is nice, because that's
nice.
some people that ask for this.
I mean, it's not that obvious though that this is the reset button, but it's good to know.
Yeah, now you do. Because now it's also easy to get back to the examples. Let me actually let's pick this one. You know, it's an often used one. Let's actually change the graph per service. Why? Because now we see again quite some. Let's again remove the thresholds, which were initially pre-configured in our example, to get rid of colors. And I think that's a good example. You have lots of smaller services here with the response time, and you have a big one. And sometimes this actually screws up the scale. And I mean, in that case, I might be interested in this, but what if I wanted to get rid of it? It's now as simple as clicking hide, which is a way nicer way now to interact with the legend in essence, because this way you then can rescale and see more in case. Yeah, we could do the same again. In essence, zooming in and zooming in, getting more granularity on a scale with this. And the other way around, it works exactly the same. What if I want to isolate this? Let's just use focus, and there you go.
So basically, it's because I could always click on the legend on the bottom on the individual dimensions, and basically enable this. Now this is a convenience feature to say, because and sometimes it's hard to correlate visually what is this metric down there, and that's perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. I like this. This is very helpful.
Yes. That's in essence a bit stolen from the new experience, because there we are heavily into chart interactions, and we wanted to bring some of the same convenience also back to the current product.
Not stolen, but repurposed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry. You are the better seller, I guess. I need to learn some. But you are doing this for longer, right? So I still have a few clinics to learn. So you can already see, I mean, lots of new things actually hide behind this tooltip menu. We also made it a bit nicer in terms of looks. I already showed you focus and hide. I already showed you add baseline. Another context feature, I would say, though, and now it gets tricky because yesterday it didn't work. Let's hope it works today. It's actually look at this service and now hit the C correlated, and it doesn't. I like demo effects. But what we in essence put there and is the same magic that you also find on the unified analysis screen, only in a generic way. You actually repurposed and reused their components. And you can see it does exactly the same thing as you would find on the unified analysis, only that there it takes into account all the related metrics on that screen, while here it actually truly is a generic way of looking at whatever metric you have. Once you've split it, because it only works on series, you can then actually find related metrics this way. And I will not now go into detail because we already, I think, have a clinic on this, but now you will find the same convenience right from the Data Explorer to do exactly the same.
Yeah, I think this is a great feature for any performance engineer. If you have a metric and you want to know what other metrics are correlating, right? What are leading indicators? Classical example would be you have a high CPU spike, and the correlation might be your garbage collector kicks in. And I think that's something that we now conveniently give you. So you just pick a metric, pick a time frame, and then say, Davis, show me what metrics are correlating the same way like this metric. And I think that's
Exactly.
just very useful. Super cool.
And actually, these two work together because I showed you before you can easily add a baseline. And once it goes out, again, if you have the drop or the spike, the classic example, CPU usage or whatever one you are currently looking at, then you can actually use this as a next logical step to potentially find metrics that move similarly, as Andy said. And that's for the contextual and added interaction part on the chart. Let me actually show you two more bigger things. One is next to this tooltip, we also for graph or actually for all of them added a few minor things, but let me do them later. But for graph, we also now made this scrollable. So because before we always cut it for no reason, I guess. And since we now heard, hey, I want to see them all, now you can see them all, in fact. You can also, again, as Andy said, also from here, activate, deactivate stuff, or you do it right out from the graph with the focus on hide functionality. That was one of the things that you asked for graph next to the contextual things. We also added, coming back to the minor things, things like this in the tooltip so that you actually know, okay, what's the time zone you're looking at for this timestamp, because that's important sometimes. And that's for graph, I think, with all the correlating and at baseline. Another popular visualization is tables. And there we actually have several things that we did by now. And one becomes obvious once I go down. There's just one. For the ones very attentive and knowing the Data Explorer, you know there's never been such a thing. Now there is. What could that mean, Andy? I make it more interactive now.
Well, you can page, right? Obviously, first of all, I guess the default number of table rows is probably bigger than before. And I get the limit up there. That's what it is. Is that what you're doing?
That's as well, yeah. We also added here the records that are displayed.
Yeah.
We are not perfect yet because there will be a no limit, and I'm now kind of spoiling it or just saying it, a no limit option, but you can already actually do this.
Yeah, always in advanced mode.
This is where the magic happens, because now you see there is way more than 100. So we before, due to performance and due to let's say limitations, let's say we wanted to guide the user also a bit. We always showed 100, but we have heard several times that there is like 101, or I have 200 this or 200 that, custom devices or whatever. People were asking for more. And we said, okay, if we can do it, why not do it? This is what we ended up with. First off, we show you how many. Second off, you can now remove the limit and get, I think, up until the metrics API limit, which is way, way higher. I think up in the 100,000 range, if I'm not mistaken. Numbers of records. Then comes the next problem, which is, okay, once I see 2000, this might get too long. So we also added pagination, which you also ask for. And now comes the fun part, because you're probably already out. The ones who struggled with this in the past are already asking themselves, okay, Thomas, now you showed all that beauty in the Data Explorer, but what about my dashboard? Well, we got you covered. No worries. We also did it there. And the cool thing is, because I'm personally not a big fan of putting page sizes and stuff, because to me that's way too clunky. And so we just made it smart. So it just adjusts to exactly the size you put.
Small things with a big impact, gotta say.
Yes, because we don't like to configure things. We are bigger fans of analyzing data than configuring all the world out of whatever charts, and like how many people really do it after all. Okay, so you've seen we removed the limit, so you can actually see more. To wrap up, we've added pagination, but that's not all. There's always one more thing. Now I play the Steve Jobs card. Let me actually reset this to, doesn't matter actually, host. Let's do something else. But is it enough? No, it's not enough. Okay, I should have sticked with requests. Always better. Services, because we obviously, well, let's, for that, it actually doesn't matter. Let me use a smaller set actually. Not request, but action count. And I think we only have a few applications here, but wow, 2, that's not a lot. What about time frame? Still, okay.
What are you trying to do? Maybe
yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example for having classic ABCDFG case, because the host is not the best example here. So actually I go back to services.
Yeah.
Request. Request count. I guess it doesn't matter too much. Yes, that's okay-ish, I guess, depending. And now what you would have needed to do in order to sort this, I mean, it's not the best example, but we at least have D, S, and R, right? What you would have needed to do before, you would have actually needed to go to advanced mode. What you can do now is, since we added here a bit of magic to come around, or to make it more pleasant to work with the metrics query language, is you can actually now use the front end and the builder, as we called it in the past, to do this easily, which means first, or once you've split, you get any of these dimensions here as a choice. Then you can actually just pick it like this, because I'm not interested in the values and don't want to sort by values. I actually want to sort here by the service. You just pick the service and then you're good to go. You rerun, and then it's actually sorted according to this. It's descending, so this is why it starts with you. And as simple as that. The reason why I said work around, because you actually need to extend, if we look at this, you need to extend this by the name with a names operator. That's what's actually happening under the hood. And in that case, we automatically hide this additional column. That's, by the way, the last piece here that we added, that you can actually now choose what columns you show and hide, because then you don't have these double listings, but you just have the name with the entity link. But you could go wild and say, okay, I just want to have a list of all that. Let's actually get rid of the request count, which is usually the most important when using metrics. Now you can, because you can easily remove this and then just have a list of your services, hosts, whatever. And that's it about tables. So again, limit, showing columns, hiding columns, sorting, and pagination on both the Data Explorer and your dashboards. And I hope now people like using tables.
I'm pretty sure they do. I'm sure they did it before as well, but they just thought there can be more, and now you brought us more.
Yes.
So it's awesome.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Let me just check the columns. I did that. The tooltips already mentioned the minor things. I already mentioned this as well. The UTC timestamps that we brought. We also lifted for some use cases. For instance, sometimes SREs or also internal staff came. Okay, I want to look at, for instance, that's just a minor case, but let's actually present it. I want to only look at the last 5 minutes, right? And that was actually not possible, because for most of these folded visualizations, such as single value or table or pie, etc., we actually hide the resolution, and we took the infinite resolution, which means we took the full time frame that you selected, and then we folded it, and you had like no control of, for instance, exactly in this case where you said, okay, I just want to look at the last value of a certain time bucket on my dashboard. You weren't able to do this. Now you can, just have to select last value, And then you can actually say, okay, I mean, the time frame is big, that's why I'm only left with these resolutions, but actually I want to look at the last hour in that case, then it's as simple as picking the resolution as well. And then whatever you get in the table, whatever you get in the single value is exactly that time bucket here. For instance, 5 point. And yes, we can actually easily check that by going here and then showing the same in a graph. And then you can easily look at this over time and make sure that this is actually around that number here.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yes, more flexibility.
Yeah.
And this would be actually, let me now go back to the presentation. If I can. Do you see it?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So let's check whether I presented everything. Yeah, build mode improvements. I forgot about them, but let's quickly go over them in the presentation. Besides the sorting, we also added 3 additional ones, which we have seen and also used ourselves a lot. And we said, hey, why not also bring this to the builder, which is rate. So whenever you want to normalize your numbers according to a given rate per hour, per second, per minute, we also brought default. What does default do? Whenever you have gaps, you can actually fill them. Here, for instance, I already did that in an example. I had quite a few gaps, and I said, okay, let's actually fill them up with 200. This is why you see a continuous line and with no gaps here. And then there's time shift, which we added 2 things. First off, we added the operation in the build mode. So you can there now conveniently pick, okay, I don't want to see now, I actually want to see the data from a week ago, for instance. And then what we also did is we automatically added this to the name so that in the legend and also in the tooltip, you see how much it was time shifted so that you can easily compare this then to any additional metric that you added, which might represent your data as of today, for instance, versus a week ago.
As this is nice to overlay 2 different time frames on top of each other and then compare it visually. That's great. Yeah.
Exactly. I already showed you focus. I already showed you baseline. Here was a spike instead of a drop. I already showed you the correlation part. I also showed you tables with limit, with sorting, and also the columns. And I showed you that, yes, we also do that on the dashboard. And I think I already mentioned most, if not all, of the MISC things, which is adding the records, check, adding the timestamp, the time zone in the respective places. I also mentioned the resolution part that we lifted the constraint. We also added a very minor addition that we did is to pie and to top list, for instance, where you see, for instance, 10 different items in the list or in a pie. We also added the relative share, which makes it now easier to have that information when a slice is, for instance, a quarter, that it's actually 25%. Then it's easy to grasp it visually. But if it's not easy to grasp it visually, then you can now have the percentage numbers as well. And I think that's it. Yeah, and we made sure that all the tooltips are consistent, which means a good example is top list that people ask for a lot. Because initially when we did the data explorer tiles, we, I guess, just forgot about the top list to have proper drill downs, have that too, and all the drill downs work equally and consistently for all the visualizations.
Nice. Thank you.
Yes. And I come back here because now we've seen what we added to the current product. And that's then actually, again, second segue back to the new Dynatrace experience, because before I already said, okay, even though we're improving this still, as you see, we already have this second option called the Dashboards app, where we believe the flows and all the interactions are even better. Coming back to the first point. Then again, as Andy said, if you want to combine data, if you want to use Grail, again, the Dashboards app, and then also blending in external data, using better filters, and then switching also between apps, again, dashboarding app. So let's actually look at all these things very briefly to wrap it up.
Exactly, and because in more detail, as you're switching over for more details, folks, we have a clinic that we already published on both YouTube as well as on the Dynatrace University. It's called a Practitioner's Guide to Analytics, or actually I think it's called Analytics Without Boundaries, and where you and Philip showed not only the dashboards, but also the notebooks. And I'm really happy that we give a quick glance overview, because if folks are watching this and they're not familiar with Dynatrace and they want to see what's possible, then it's great to show them also what the new experience looks like around dashboarding and data analytics.
Yes. Okay, you see, it looks different. I mean, it's a dashboard, right? So no huge difference other than I would argue the visualizations are way more, colorful, like bouncy. It looks fresh, in my opinion, but that's subjective. You have to decide and judge on that. You can see that most of the basic things, let's actually look into this, are there. You can add tiles, you can leverage the power of Grail here as well as in the Notebooks app that Philip showed in this other clinic already. You already have most, if not all, of the basic visualizations that you have in the current product. Table, you have a new one which is called Record List, which is very handy for event-driven data. You have Pi already and Donut, you have single values, you have all sorts of variants like area and bar, also categorical bar, as you can see here, which is in essence now you can choose between the orientation, a top list, because now I can simply say, okay, let's actually show that vertical, which makes some visualizations definitely nicer. In terms of flows, to actually quickly show the first bullet that I mentioned before, you can see that there is no going back and forth anymore. It's as simple as clicking once to go either to the data or to the visualization type selection or to the chart settings, as you can see. And it's a matter of a click to get rid of it. So this is now way faster and way more convenient, I would argue.
That's also the reason, I think, why we don't have the Data Explorer equivalent as a separate app or component, because all of the editing of the query behind the scenes is just happening implicitly here in the dashboard app.
Exactly. And let me do the full circle to that at the end with the seamless switching, because I would argue you can still do a more explorative focused work than in notebooks, but let's actually use this then at the end to switch to notebooks. So that's about the flows. Definitely more about this, particularly about the interaction part that I kind of mentioned before in the observability clinic together with Philip. Please check it out. He shows a lot how to interact with data there, but to spoil it a bit, yes, you can do the same also in dashboards that you will see there. So, and that's why, for instance, tables, while we improved it in the current product, with the new experience, we were actually so much less restricted, and you can already see, okay, now it's as simple as clicking, and also the sorting part is then in context, which is exactly where we're heading with this, making everything way more seamless and way more in context in order to, for instance, sort, to tie it back to what I just showed in the current product, and to a bit sell the new experience, because I think it really is in that part way more advanced, and hopefully will get way more advanced even more. Yeah, that's about flows. And the second part was about Grail, but I guess not much to show there. And again, referencing you or referring you back to the other clinic where Philip goes into detail about how to do queries, etc., and how to then interact with them on top of visualizations. The third part was then blending in the external data. So once you've, in essence, tailored all your dashboard, you might then ask yourself, and I actually been in a customer call yesterday where, and I liked it a lot because that case came up, exactly the case that I, in essence, presented for the last observability clinic. Back then I used this board, I adjusted it a bit yesterday, made it a bit smaller, where all of this is actually coming from somewhere completely else, which means not from Grail, not from within Dynatrace. If you click at this, you can see that you actually don't have a query box, but you have a code block box, which means you can use JavaScript in order to fetch whatever data you may have or want to blend in from any other source. In that case, it's my personal GitHub. And I simply get in a JSON file. In a customer call, he challenged me, and I still have to play around with this. He said, what if I have a CSV? And I was bluntly saying, yeah, sure. I guess JavaScript allows you to traverse stuff, and I will try this out. I will try this out, and we'll put it into the docs. That's a commitment, by the way,
cool.
which
So
you seldomly hear from a PM.
So that's great, because basically what you're saying, and there's a lot of use cases where you have external data, whether it comes through a URL like you had, or through an API where you're pulling in data from an external API, and the data is either available as JSON or CSV or however, and now you can add external data into your dashboard, into your notebooks on demand to just make it easier for you to understand all the data in context by also bringing external data in. That's cool.
Yes. And the cool thing is that's not just it. I would even go a step further, because now it would be a either or world, right? Like A or B, which is either I put a query tile or I put a code tile. But I mean, I can't show it now because I'm a code noob. But we also do have indeed, okay, that's the classic demo effect. We also do indeed have SDKs, which would allow you to not just fetch that external data, but also then in the code part, use the SDK to blend in a Grail query, which is even more awesome, which means you might then even use this in order to, do whatever with it.
Cool. And as we said, right, let's make sure that folks, if you're interested in this, yeah, I mean that's the brave thing when you go to do demos on a dev environment. But that's perfectly fine. I think, Thomas, you gave us a great overview already. Classic, all the stuff that we've done there. Regularly, what can our users do to analyze and explore the data? New baselining, new focus feature. I really like the correlation feature. Now you show us also what we are bringing to the table for our new experience, notebooks and dashboards, now focusing on dashboards. Anything else you want to show before wrapping it up here?
Yes. It's the last remaining bits and pieces, one being filters. I'm now on a more stable environment, because they won't change too much there. Filters is actually using all that what I've just showed, both code or Grail within a variable, which then in essence you can use again also in your tiles, be it code or Grail based tiles. And you can do exactly the same here, define your query, run it, get then a preview, and then add it as a filter. Let's actually quickly do this, because let's do this. I hope it works. It doesn't matter exactly. So you can then again use Grail in order to populate your filters. And then once you put them on the dashboard, you have it here at your disposal. You can then also wire them up in any such tile. That's still the old layout, as you can see, but it doesn't matter, that the concept is the same. Put your filter in your tile or in your code, then you can actually use this nicely to adjust whatever's on your dashboard dynamically. There we go.
That's really cool.
That's the filter part. And the last part, I think it did not recover. I guess they probably just updated stuff. Does it? Yes, no, okay, doesn't matter. The last part is then actually going full circle, as I said. And in that case, it would be the open with, which we call internally intents. And now you can then easily go to this other app called Notebooks. You already get the choice. Okay, do I want to put this on my existing ones or a new one? Let's actually put this on my demo. And then you should be good to, again, catch up here and proceed whatever you want to do with it.
Cool. The difference from notebooks and dashboards, notebooks also store the data in the notebook.
Yes.
Also easy to share then. You can export it, import it somewhere else. Great to explore and massage the data. Yeah.
Yes, and it's sequential, as you can see, which makes the whole discussion, reporting aspects way easier and nicer.
Cool. Hey, Thomas,
Yes.
there's a lot of innovation happening, obviously, and a lot of things you highlighted earlier in the roadmap items, what is coming in the next couple of quarters. I would like to do this as a regular update to our users on what's happening with dashboarding, because dashboards is the window to the data, while we as Dynatrace want to focus a lot of automation, and so that you don't necessarily need dashboards for all the use cases, because we do a lot of things out of the box. We know dashboards are the window to your data, and as we are especially expanding the Dynatrace data from technical data to also business data, I think there will be more and more needs for notebooks, for dashboards, and then automating the stuff that you have put together in your dashboards using, for instance, the Dynatrace workflows. So therefore, Thomas, I would love to have you back as often as possible, because I know there's a lot of stuff happening and coming out of your team. And so it's really,
Yes.
really great to see. Good. With this, I want to say thanks. If you watch this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. Also look at the description on the bottom with the additional links. If you watch this on Dynatrace University, same thing. If you want to reach out to us, you have our names. Another good way to provide feedback is just community.dynatrace.com. The discussion forum is a great way to ask questions, or you also have the in-product chat. If you want to talk with a Dynatrace expert, the Dynatrace built-in chat is a great way to do this. All right. Thomas, with this, Dankeschön.
Danke.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.